Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this evening's Town of Amherst Traffic Safety Board meeting. Today is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. First order of business is just to introduce ourselves. I am Eric Fraz. I am the interim chairman. And with me this evening, we'll just have the members announce themselves and then also our liaisons.
Cynthia Selvin, member.
Nick Alterio, board member.
Dan Ryder, member.
Kevin Cantwell, board member.
William Sanders, board member.
Chris Schregel, Engineering Department Liaison, Traffic Safety Coordinator.
Mike Sukala, Amherst Town Board Member and Liaison to the Amherst Traffic Safety Board.
Thank you. And our next order of business this evening is just to review the minutes from the meeting on December 4th, 2024. Open that up to the board if there are any changes that need to be made to the document. None being heard, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
And a second by Kevin. Any further comments? None being heard, all in favor? Aye. Motion nay. None being heard. Motion carried 6-0 to approve the minutes from December 4th, 2024. For those in attendance this evening, we'll just go over, I believe our two residents that we have here this evening have been to meetings before. Am I correct? So you are both aware that we are not a law-making board. We are volunteer appointees from the town board. Anything that we do this evening, we will either refer over to our department liaisons, or we will send it to the town board and council members of Kala to take any legal action that needs to be made. We will open up the public comment period. We'll address the items on the agenda in the order that people are signed in for this evening. For those that are on the agenda, I believe we do have one resident here who is signed in for an item that is not on the agenda. That will require a vote from the board to determine if we move forward with adding that item onto the agenda for discussion. We'll open up public comment period for anybody that wants to speak for any agenda item. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Any information that you have shared with the board or with the town has been shared with all the board members. We all have a packet with all that information. So with that being said, we will move to the agenda items that we have this evening. We have nobody signed in for any agenda items to speak, but we do have a resident here for old business item A, Steinway Court. So we will address that item first. Chris, if you just want to refresh our memories of what this item is about before we get started.
Sure, I direct your attention to the screen. Got a small presentation just summarizing what was discussed. Steinway Court is in central Amherst, located just east of North Forest and off of Maple. It is a cul-de-sac on the south side of Maple. If you recall from last month's meeting, also reflected in the minutes, the resident who's here tonight approached the town looking for a no standing zone. After discussion, it was identified and voted on and approved that a recommendation would ultimately go to the town board for what is shown on the screen, a no standing zone for 40 feet in front of the stop sign on both sides. If you recall, there was some unwanted parking and unsafe movements coming off of Maple, where the parked vehicles in that area were choking down the road and making an unsafe situation. The board agreed, and like I said, moved it forward to the board. That's what this is. It will likely occur sometime in March, where a public hearing will be held. Councilmember Zukala, you will be getting this in the near future, where the town board will be asked to set the public hearing. The actual resolution reads the vehicles are, this is draft, but vehicles are hereby no longer permitted to stand at any time on both sides of Steinway Court for a distance of 58 feet from the south curb line of Maple Road. Reasons it's 58 feet is we take it from the curb line and not the stop sign because stop signs can move, but it reflects what you guys recommended. As part of this procedurally, you asked that we reach out to the adjacent property owners. That's 2, 1, 9, and 10 Steinway Court. Only one resident responded, and that was a resident of 1 Steinway Court, and they responded in full support of the no standing proposal. The other 3 did not respond. That is all.
Thank you, Chris. We have no residents to speak on this item. You still choosing not to speak? Okay. Okay. So with that, I am just going to make the motion to proceed with the memorandum to establish the public hearing, or the recommendation to set the public hearing for the vehicles no longer permitted to stand at any time on both sides of Steinway Court for a distance of 58 feet from the south curb line of Maple Road. I will make a motion to move that forward to the town board with Councilmember Zucala. Is there a second?
I second.
Second from Cynthia. Is there any other comments from the board to be made? So the residents that were here and spoke on this item were in favor of this motion. We reached out to the residents, which would be the normal process. The one resident that did respond was also in favor. Therefore, that's the reason for my motion to move forward. Since there's no other comments from the board, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 6-0 to refer to the town board for the action as recommended. Yep, thank you. And we'll let you get home before more snow falls. So with that, just because we do have a resident in the audience tonight, we'll kind of break our normal rules here. Normally, we go through the agenda items in order, but I'll just make the ask here. We do have a resident that is present tonight to discuss Chateau Terrace, which is not an agenda item, which is not an item on the agenda. So before moving forward, just so we can let the residents know what our position is and he doesn't have to sit here all night, is there any motion from anybody on this board to add the item to the agenda as item number 4 for new business? Chris, would it go under 4 as new business, or is this considered old business? Hold on 1 second.
It's a new year. You can just say item 4.
Okay, so this would be, is there any motion from anyone on this board to add agenda item number 4 to discuss Chateau Terrace?
What are we discussing?
The resident would like to discuss speed and traffic concerns on Chateau Terrace.
So Kevin, it's the opportunity for the resident to speak, and then it is up to you if you want to continue discussion. If you feel uncomfortable without having any information on this, you can hold it to a future agenda or table it, whatever you want to do.
Whatever.
So we have a motion from Dan to add Chateau Terrace to the agenda. Is there a second? And a second from Nick. Any further comments before we vote? All in favor to add?
Aye.
All right, Ed.
Opposed? Motion carried 6-0 to add Chateau Terrace. So with that, we will open up the public comment period for the resident to speak for Chateau Terrace.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. We've been having, I've been at Chateau for 30 years.
Excuse me, what's your name and address, please?
Bob Dirtle,
Record.
92 Chateau Terrace. We've gone around and around with the town board, with the town supervisor, highway department, and there was a traffic study done in September. Now, I feel that just due to when it was done, it was the beginning of the school year. A lot of parents didn't know that there was another way in and out. We have a lot of traffic that should be going off Harlem Road that comes out on Chateau. Stop signs are ignored, speed limits are ignored. The traffic studies show that, let's see, southbound on Chateau, at 94 Chateau Terrace, you've got 89, what's that, 134 cars going through at 21 to 35 miles an hour. If you move from 94 to 65, that puts the traffic study into a school zone where the speed limit is 20 miles an hour, which means you've got 130 cars exceeding the speed limit for the school zone. It's the same basically going north and south. I would just like another one done with the count moved up the street into the school zone, so everybody would have a better idea of how the speed limit is being ignored in this school zone. I mean, you can put up school zone signs wherever you want. I mean, it's a no outlet street. Years ago, we let Park School put an exit there. Now they're saying they can't close it because it's a school, all right? In the statement that Park School, the letter that Park School wrote, they recognized that increased traffic into the neighborhood is a detriment to the neighborhood. I can't do anything about that now, but what I would like to try and do is get some more information to help me go to the police department and say, I would like more traffic enforcement there. I mean, in summertime with the camp, at opening and closing, you've got like well over 100 cars within a half hour blowing through. I mean, I've got video of like 95 cars blowing stop signs, or 85 or 80 or 90. I mean, cars blowing through the stop sign out of 95 cars.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I would appreciate it if we could get another traffic study.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on this item? None being heard, we'll close the public comment period and open it up to the board for further conversation.
What's the latest on all this? Wasn't that driveway into Park School at what is it, at the bottom of Chateau Terrace supposed to be closed off?
So the recommendation of this board, if we were to go back through the notes that we have, this board has looked at this area extensively because of the construction project that is there. Based on the request of the residents, we've looked at it for the school that's in that area. The recommendation that this board has made, if we went back through our minutes, would be to close the curb cut to the Park School, which has been chosen by the highway superintendent in the town that they cannot close it as the resident stated. So that is not an option. So we also have a major construction project that I don't know the current status of it, if it's under construction, halted, or where that stands, stalled. So with that, we do have the concern back before us again so that would be the history on this item. So we can, based on this information that the resident has shared, we can hold this item and table it to the February meeting if we wish, so that Chris can bring up all the notes and the background and the information so that everybody on this board has it, or we can continue to discuss this agenda item now.
Yeah, Chairman, what the resident really wants is another traffic study, but placed in the school zone. Al, do you see any reason why we can't do this in the spring of 2025 and just provide the results directly to the resident? No, I'm thinking spring. Keep it during school. I mean, I don't know when construction's going to start back up, but we'll have to make sure that there's not a construction activity going on. But I don't mind working with you if you email me directly, tell me exactly where you want it, and happy to do that and provide you the results.
So that was what I was actually going to say. Thank you, Chris. I was going to make the recommendation to the board that this be referred over to engineering and highway directly to work with the resident, and any action to go directly to Councilmember Zucala to discuss the issue. This board has reviewed that area extensively. I believe the ask of this board is for an additional traffic study to be done upon the completion of the construction in that area to get additional counts. So that's what this board would be waiting for before taking any action. We've exhausted everything in our arsenal that we can possibly do, and the recommendations that we've had have not had action taken from the town. So if the board is in agreement with that, we'll just refer this to engineering and highway, asking them to, as Chris said, work with you to do another count once the weather breaks, to get you what you're asking for them to put the counters up, which they can do, and then work directly with them. Yep. Thank you. With that, that will close the item that we added to the agenda, and we will now move through the agenda as listed. We'll move to item number 1, Ridgely Drive at Lowe's driveway, request for a traffic signal.
I've got another presentation for you on this. The resident did reach out and could not, unfortunately, make it tonight. So they told me a couple things on the phone, which I put into this presentation. So here we are. We are off of Niagara Falls Boulevard. I trust everyone knows where Lowe's and all the other vendors in. Was this Consumer Square? Is that what this is called?
The Boulevard.
The Boulevard? Okay. So it's on the north side of the Boulevard. Whoops. And the Lowe's driveway comes to the, comes out essentially where my cursor is, and it intersects with Ridgely. It is offset from the housing to the north. And we'll get into geometry in just a moment, but this is where the concerns are. We looked at this back in 2012, where the petitioner, I believe it was Benderson, was asked to do a signal warrant analysis at that time to determine if that intersection met the warrants. It did not. That result is within your package. I'm not going to go through each criteria item. And then back in 4 years later, in November 2016, this issue came up before the Traffic Safety Board, where the Highway Department, after review of the accidents, was asked to do some tactical urbanism and do a trial run of a new striping plan that you guys came up with, specifically on Ridgely Road. After not hearing from the Highway Department, a follow-up was sent in 2018. This is that concept that you came up with. So maybe before we do that, I'll show you what's there now. Keep in mind, Ridgely Road is a town of Amherst owned and maintained roadway. We are responsible for the pavement markings. So coming off of Niagara Falls Boulevard, you do have two lefts going into Ridgely. Oops, turn off the road. And you have 2 lanes going eastbound. Those 2 lanes drop off, and one ultimately turns into designated right turn lane specific to Lowe's. I think that's where some of the confusion lies. Some of these people don't realize they're in a turning lane and then ultimately go straight to then converge into a single lane going eastbound on Ridgely past the intersection. So we do have accidents reports I'll get to in a moment. But essentially the idea that came from this board is to taper that lane, the southernmost eastbound lane, and push it into a single lane before it winds out again into a designated right turn lane. Therefore, those that want to desire to go straight are already in the through lane, and those that want to turn right may then put on their blinker and then, enter into that designated turn lane to turn into Lowe's. Trust everyone understands that. I believe at the time the highway superintendent did not want to create a work zone in this area without any work occurring. He had some issues with safety and liability specific to, setting up this should something occur there we may be liable. So I know he was hesitant because of that. Moving on, this is the 2016. Actually, I'm sorry, it's a 3-year review between 2013 to the end of 2015. There were a total of 15 crashes. This is called a crash diagram. Each one of these arrows represents something. If you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 accidents were related to a left coming out of Lowe's and then getting T-boned by an eastbound vehicle. That is the majority of the accidents at this location at that time period. Now, fast forward to today, we have another request to signalize this. We already know that the signal warrants were not met in 2012. One has not been done since. And he has changed his request since the submission of that letter to either a traffic signal or an all-way stop. And then you guys can always re-entertain the potential reconfiguration. I'm sorry, I take that back. You can also take a look at a right-in, right-out scenario, and then also entertain as another option, potentially a, that striping plan you guys came up with. So if you look at collision diagram today, looking at the last 3 years, accidents have gone down. So what was once 8 accidents for a left turn are now down to 3. And just generally, you'll see that there's a lot less accidents. I don't know what that could be contributed to, but I guess it's good to know we're trending in a better direction than what was done before. Okay. Thank you. So looking at options, again, all-way stop he's recommending or suggesting. We have a potential right-in, right-out reconfiguration where we force people to only turn right out of the driveway and prohibit lefts going in and allowing rights coming from Niagara Falls Boulevard. Or like I said, you could always try to request the option to do additional striping and signage.
Can we see what signage is there? Suppose driving is like we're going.
Yep, so like Scott said, maybe there's a sign there now that indicates that the right turn or that the lane converges. This is 2023 street view. Now we're into 2020 street view. Now we're back to 23. I'm looking. Right lane must turn right. So there's another one up here. So perhaps, do you know when that sign went up, Scott? Was it since 2012?
I think
Okay.
I think it might have been put up the last time we brought that up and we asked for the striping, that they at least put the signs up.
Yeah. Well, according to the crash records, those signs are helping.
I'm not sure an always stop would work here, but I think going out of the driveway should probably stop. So, because people stop anyway because the stuff coming. Is there a
So-
stop there?
Coming out of the plaza, there's a stop sign.
I know.
It's pushed to the side because it's so wide.
No, you know what? It's you know what? It's bent over. I remember this. Turn to the side, but spacing coming out. So it's not addressing. It's not addressing traffic. It's not addressing traffic. That's what's going on there.
So is that our sign or is that Fenderson's sign? So
Well, all it's gonna take is the Hulk to just pull it and straighten it out. That's all it really takes.
Scott, that plaza over there has many things that come before us to redo over there. I think there's something that the Applebee's over there is closing and a new concept to go in that I saw in the news, which I believe would be some kind of site plan that would need to be done as they do work over there. So if there was another site plan to come in for anything on that property, could we request Benderson do another analysis there for signalization as part of any future site work that they do there?
And maybe we need to,
Well, no, I get that, but we need to do,
To answer your question, Chairman, you can condition anything that comes to us specific to this property. So it'll be up to the planning board to then either follow that, or if it's a minor site plan, it'll be up to the planning department to determine if that needs to be followed through. But you can ask for one, absolutely.
right, because where I'm going with this is that plaza has significantly changed since 2012 with what's been added into it, the amount of traffic that's over there. I mean, I don't know if we can go to the plaza itself has added additional buildings. The building that's right there in the middle of the plaza with, I mean, in 2012, was Kmart still there? Or no? Christmas Tree Shops was already moved in and that was all expanded over there. They added in the Old Navy. They've expanded those buildings at that end. The traffic over there we know is drastically different than 2012.
yet the accidents have gone down.
The accidents have gone down, but we still have an intersection that has accident history in the request. I would say a full traffic analysis and study at that intersection at this point is warranted to determine if adding a signalized intersection there is warranted.
Not to disagree, but to bring up the point, in a year and a half, there's gonna be a Costco added there. That's gonna totally significantly, let's put it this way, we're gonna be examining every square foot of Bailey Avenue over the next 2 years after Costco is there. Might it be a better time to do the analysis then?
It could be.
Because Costco's coming and it's just gonna affect everything.
But Costco would, on a traffic study for the warrant analysis, the main count that we know that Ridgely has plenty of traffic on it. It's the traffic that's entering and exiting that plaza. Adding the Costco in the back, I would say, is not going to change the number of cars that are exiting and entering the plaza in that spot. I think that's the,
But it's gonna alter the number of cars passing by, is my point.
right, but that'll already,
Yeah.
through the warrant, will already exceed the count regardless.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it has to do with the graph though, and manipulation of adding traffic volume to the one, which is Ridgely, may impact the plotting of the point on the graph and adding significant delay for these folks to come out. So I would concur with Kevin that,
I use this intersection an awful lot. I really do. And the real hazard is making a left onto Ridgely out of the driveway and getting the T-bone where those majority of accidents happen, for people going eastbound in the outermost lane.
Yep.
That's where the hazard is, because you're looking, and you make your move, and sometimes you don't see the car coming on because there's a car making a turn in the block. You just can't
Yes.
see it.
Correct.
Before you know it, you're getting hit at 30 miles an hour, but because you're blocked by a guy going 5 miles an hour making the turn. So there is a hazard there.
You also have a misaligned driveway on the other end, aligned into that intersection that ties into it, that would go into the analysis for the study. I'm still at the point where the traffic that's over in that area is drastically different than 2012. That even if we wanted to consider putting in an all-way stop sign in that intersection, we would still need to do a traffic study at that intersection just to warrant making it an all-way stop sign. So
Are we talking like
to
what kind of study are you talking? Counts or a full deal?
we would just need the warrant analysis to do the counts on Ridgely and traffic exiting the plaza, correct, Chris? To determine what warrants are met.
right.
I think before we can take any action here, we need to know the actual counts to see if a stop sign is even feasible based on the numbers, or if it meets the numbers to consider a traffic light.
Would both eastbound lanes have to abide by the stop sign if we didn't always stop?
Yes, every lane would have to abide by it.
That gets confusing.
And that,
Rob.
I mean, your traffic counts there, your traffic counts with the counts on Ridge Lee with the width of the road to make that an all-way stop sign, you'd probably still have to hang a flashing red light or something in the middle of that intersection like you have at Young's and Casey.
I mean, I would be concerned with the amount of vehicles turning into Ridgely and it backing all the way up into Niagara Falls Boulevard
For a
with a
stop
stop
sign.
sign.
Yes.
I mean, you look at the stacking length here, 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And
And another thing to consider is the timing of doing the studies, because there's construction going on Ridgely, and Benderson is artificially, I don't want to say artificially, but they've got manual stoplights or temporary stoplights up that are blocking traffic from time to time. Are they?
that's related to a sewer project by the town.
That project seems to be completed, by the way. Or at least not full.
It's winter shutdown.
So, so what we're saying is there's no ideal time to do a traffic count there. I mean,
No, I think you guys keep this in mind for, when they come in again and make it a condition. I like the original plan. The timing, let's just see what happens.
we know that Benderson's going to be back with all the construction going over there with another site plan for changes to that plaza or the plaza with, they've got plenty of stuff going on over there that we can request the condition that a traffic study be done at this intersection for any further work being done there.
Do we need to make a motion?
I think we'd just make a motion to, well, we either are going to receive and file this, taking no action, and just wait for something to come before us, or we have to make a motion of what we're going to do.
I like the idea of a right in, right out.
I don't, because it's going to congest people making, that's like the only way to make a left onto Ridgely, out of that whole area.
We don't want people to make a left. We can prevent it.
Unless you hardscape that entire, there's nothing you can do in that spot that'll stop people from making a left out of that intersection. Everyone's making a left out of that intersection to get to Niagara Falls Boulevard to get onto the 290.
And this brings up another point, actually. If we back up an intersection to that four-way stop at Michael's on Romney and all that, no one pays attention to that, no left turn either. I mean, there's an over posted and no one pays attention to it.
Let's,
So people are you're gonna put in no left, people are gonna blow it off. And then you're gonna have an accident because people said, hey, you weren't supposed to make a left, but they did, because they're gonna blow it off. Because they're gonna blow it off. The only way to block it is to actually block the lane.
So I'll make a motion to receive and file this item and
Wait for plans to come.
hold for site plans on the plaza based on current construction in the area that would prevent us from getting any accurate counts or study at this particular time. So all in favor of receive and file?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. That will move us to item number 2, Dan Troy Drive, a request for sign changes to alleviate stop sign and non-compliance.
Here to talk about.
Nope.
the town received a call from a resident of Dan Troy area requesting some sort of assistance to alleviate stop sign non-compliance. Those vehicles that are rolling through or blowing through a stop sign located on the screen, Meadowview Lane and Dan Troy intersection. That's located centrally in the town, just east of Hopkins, south of Maple. The concern was that stop sign is not being obeyed. There are several children that reside in the immediate vicinity. You did look at this back in 2021, where you determined that the location did not meet the criteria for an always stop. We went out there on 2 different occasions, as we often do when something like this comes in, to determine what is a blow-through versus a roll-through versus an always stop. Keeping in mind, we're not police department, but we try to do our best. We were very surprised at the amount of low volume going on. So yes, we did an hour midday on a Thursday. There was nobody blowing through. We had, for the people that did go through, we did have a good number of people rolling through, 9, and 2 stopped. Then I suggested, well, maybe we'll try to find some more volume. Let's look at the AM peak, 8 to 9. And wow, we only saw 2 vehicles go through that stop sign. So yes, they were roll-throughs, but given the amount of low volume, they're probably rolling through because there's so little volume going on. Should you want to continue with the recommendation to add conspicuity to the stop sign, there are ways to do that within the MUTCD. I provided this in your package of all the different options. You can flag it, you can highlight, you can oversize the signs, you can double post the signs, you can put a strip of reflective material on the stop sign, a unistrut post. You can add LED units. And I think I added something else in your package showing a diagram of some options with, graphically. With that, I'll turn it over to the board.
Okay, the fact people are rolling through the stop sign, people already know it's there.
Yep.
So you can put all the fluorescent on it you want, all the flags, you make it look like a circus tent. And they're still gonna roll through because they already know it's there.
You're right.
So
And I bet you 101% of those people live on Meadow Stream or Dan Troy.
So I would say, based on the traffic counts that we have, we don't have cut-through traffic. And even if it is cut-through traffic, it's not significant enough to raise concern at this point.
No accidents, I presume?
I would actually,
I don't think so.
Councilmember Zakala, how would you feel if we made a resolution to remove the stop sign at this intersection?
No, whoa,
Yes.
time out, hold on.
If that's what this committee recommends, town board, but I will say right now, the town board in general is, what's the word about hesitant? To remove
Reluctant?
already existing stop signs. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but they tend not to want to do that.
And I want to point out, this is a T intersection. So that's the stop that isn't being complied with is the bottom leg of the T. It is normal protocol in the town to stop sign the bottom leg of the T. So just so we're all on the same page, it's this movement that is being ignored. And, if someone were to go through with cut-through traffic, it would be this direction from Sheridan up Dan Troy to then turn right to Maple. So personally, I wouldn't suggest removing a stop sign here. I can say that when you guys looked at an always stop here, what further complicated the issue was the presence of Auden Court, being offset and having 2 legs in close proximity to Dan Troy. Essentially, where would you even put the stop sign? You know what I mean? It would be similar to Gettsville. It would be kind of far away.
That's a strange corner. Look at that.
It is a strange geometry for sure.
Yeah. So we're not going to convert it to an always stop sign because it doesn't meet any warrants in order to do so.
And there's no point in making it a bigger stop sign or brighter stop sign because it's already being ignored.
I mean, we have 2 cars making that two cars going through that intersection at the 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and we have 11 cars going through it in the middle of the afternoon. So looking at the geometry of the road, yes, somebody may be looking to take that as a cut through from Sheridan to Maple, as you suggested, Chris. But that's probably slower than just going to Hopkins.
Shopping on Maple.
Like, I don't see why a person would be making that, and I would think if we had people that were using that as a cut through, we'd have significantly higher counts through the intersection. And the motion that we're talking about people taking there is the right-hand turn motion. That's every single stop sign in the town of Amherst. When a person's making a right-hand turn, they're gonna roll through it. Well, I mean, we talk about it all the time. There's nothing to do here. I would receive and file.
I second receive and file. There's a motion for that.
They roll through, 'cause nothing's coming the other way.
There's no traffic count. Traffic counts don't warrant any changes. All in favor of receive and file?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0. So the next order of business on the agenda this evening is election of traffic safety board officers. Ordinarily, when we would do this, the first thing we would do is we would vote for the new chair, and I would turn this meeting over to the vice chair to hold that election for the chairman. However, we currently do not have a vice chair in order to do that. So with that, the first thing we need to do is hold the election for a new vice chair so that that vice chair can hold the election for the chairman. So with that, I will open up to this board and ask if there are any nominations for vice chairman.
I nominate Dan Ryder.
We have a nomination for Dan Ryder. Dan, would you accept?
I'd rather see a newer member have it. I had that job a few years ago and had it for a few years. I'd rather see somebody else get some experience.
Okay. So with that, are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair?
I'm a newer member. I don't know if I have no,
Anybody can do it.
I mean, I'm willing to do it.
So with that, I will nominate Cynthia as vice chair.
I'll second it.
There's a second from Dan. Are there any other nominations or anyone else want to throw their hat in the ring? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? So with that, we've asked 3 times for nominations. We have 1 nomination from Cynthia Sheldon. I will just ask to confirm, Cynthia, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
So Cynthia accepts the nomination. With that, all present here on the board, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Cynthia. You are the vice chair with 6 votes.
You never miss meetings, right?
So with that, Cynthia has been appointed to the vice chair. So at this point, I am going to make a motion to turn the meeting over to Cynthia. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried 6-0. So Cynthia, you are now in charge of the meeting. So you just need to do the same thing that I just did.
Are there any nominations for chair?
Nominate Eric Cross.
Seconds.
I second.
Are there any other nominations? Eric Fraz as chair?
No. You need to ask 3 times.
You've asked 3 times, you've asked twice.
And then.
Any other nominations other than Eric Fraz as chair, as we nominate Eric as chair?
Then you need to ask if I accept.
Do you accept?
I would accept.
We have a motion, and Eric has accepted. All those in favor of Eric Frass, chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With the vote of 6-0, Eric, you are chair. Thank God.
So now you just need to make a motion to turn the meeting back over to me.
That's what 3 times.
Go ahead, you don't have to, you can run the rest.
Now turn the meeting back over to Eric.
So you just have to make a,
Oh, I make a motion to turn the meeting back over to Eric, please.
is there a second? To turn the meeting back over. Second. Colleen,
We have a second, and all those in favor of turning the,
Aye.
say aye. Thanks. It's 6-0, turning the meeting back over to the chair.
all right, so with that, we have already addressed, we'll move to any other new business that needs to be brought before the board? None being heard, we will move to old business. We have already addressed item A. We will move to item B, Arcade Avenue cut-through speed results and request for no-through traffic signage. You just get that little screen.
Wonky computer day.
I kept getting that.
Okay, so item B is Arcade Avenue. This was before you last month. It's located in Eggertsville and runs in between Eggert and Millersport, just north of Six Corners, which is a signalized DOT intersection with 6 legs. Resident came before you and set speeds were high. We did do a traffic count and confirmed that the 85th percentile speed is 38 miles per hour in the eastbound direction. That local street is signed as a 30 mile per hour local road. It is all residential. A little bit better in the westbound direction at 34, but there is a decent amount of vehicles exceeding the speed limit. As shown on this graph, this is a graph indicating those vehicles that are traveling over 10 miles per hour. Oddly enough, it does peak at the 11 o'clock hour. Normally you see that happening in the AM and PM peak. So you're getting an average of 3 vehicles per day traveling exceeding 40 miles per hour in that 11 o'clock hour. So in response, we wrote a memo to the chief at your request, suggesting that there be additional speed enforcement on that roadway. We gave him the information. This was January 2nd, so I doubt that, Captain, that you have any updates on this. But thank you. Next, I want to point out that the MUTCD has been revised to the newest edition, and to my surprise, they do now allow for a new no through traffic sign. From the research we gathered in the office on how to use this sign, it is generally supposed to be located in roadways where there is through traffic from one arterial to the next, not necessarily traffic coming through a street to get to other internal subdivision roadways. So in this instance, looking at the geometry, that does fit the bill for Arcade, where it's between Millersport and Eggert. This sign can be used now, so if you guys are interested in start deploying this, you may make a recommendation.
That was going to be my question to Captain. How would you enforce that?
We'd have to see somebody driving from, one artery to the other.
Yeah, given it's so new, it is a white sign. It's regulatory, so it could be ticketed. But I don't even know if it's made it into the New York State VNT.
So
I'm not opposed to trying it out, seeing what happens if we post it.
I
My
move
only
we,
concern would be if you put it there, does it alert people that it's an opportunity that you can drive through that street to get through to the other street?
Yeah, and where do you even put it? You don't want to put it inside because they've already made the turn. You'd have to place it at the intersection.
yeah,
You'd have to place it on Millersport, right? With a
Yeah.
sign.
well, I think the problem is going from Eggert, is the problem going from Eggert to Millersport or the other way?
I think you'd have to post it both ways.
You can look at the traffic volumes.
The speeders are going from Eggert to Millersport, right? At the 38%.
Yeah,
Okay.
but in westbound you have approximately 200. In the eastbound you have 230-ish. So
Eastbound people going faster.
We can
Yeah.
place the sign and then get another count of the traffic results to see what effect it's having.
it's a good suggestion.
This might be a good test case for this sign.
I'm assuming the sign can be placed without town board action, correct?
New territory, Chairman, I don't know.
Scott just said that in order for it to be enforceable, it's got to be placed by the board. Is that what you said, Scott?
Yeah, but if it's in DOT right away, it's got to be placed by the DOT. Likewise for Erie County and Eggert Road.
It's county and Millersport State.
Al, do you have any thoughts on this? All right, but even if it does fall within our right-of-way jurisdiction, do you know if your department would entertain this type of sign?
Can we,
And
can-
one thing before you say something, Chairman, I do want to advise you, after a new MUTCD comes out, the state comes out with a supplement revising what is in the book specific to New York State, and they can omit specific signs if they're not on board. So we don't know, because they haven't released the supplement yet, if they're going to kibosh this type of sign. I have no way of knowing. So we're kind of in a limbo.
that was going to be my question, actually, was going
sorry.
to be, could we send a letter to New York State DOT stating that we have an issue on Arcade Drive with cut-through traffic coming from Millersport Highway to Eggert, and ask if they would be in favor of posting the newly released no-through traffic from the MUTCD for that road, and get their response to see how they would address it and how they would sign it, since the sign would have to go on their street. That would maybe trigger New York State to give us an indication if they're going to accept the sign in the MUTCD, the New York State supplement.
Put it on the radar for sure.
Yeah, I don't object to that path. Sounds like a plan.
What about the county?
Same thing. Yeah.
Either way, it would be the county or the state having to place the sign, because you can't put the sign on Acadia because the people have turned onto the street before they see it. So it would also need some kind of ruling from New York State DOT. I know they just did Transit Road and put new advisory signs for the cross streets as you're approaching them up by Transit Middle School, that they have an advanced sign for the upcoming intersections, what streets are there. I would think they would have some kind of signage with an arrow or something listing Acadia sign, yellow sign with a no through traffic underneath it or something. There'd have to be something from them. Correct.
Let's send letters out, see what the state and county say. Do we make a motion or what?
Chris will make a motion to send a letter
It's a
to.
referral, so you don't need a
We'll just
motion.
refer to, ask Chris to refer to New York State DOT and Erie County as requested to see if their recommendations for placing the no through traffic to Acadia based on cut through traffic since that sign has been added.
Good.
We'll wait for their response.
Yep, see what they say.
That's the buck.
With that, we'll move to item C, Chestnut Ridge Road, request for a mid-block crosswalk held for spring counts. Obviously, it's not spring, so we don't have counts, so we'll continue to hold that item. And with that, that closes the old business unless there is any agenda item that anyone wishes to bring before the board on old business. Since we're so quick tonight, I'm going to ask one question, Chris. Intersection of Youngs and Klein. You know my favorite intersection. Any determination made by highway or the town yet regarding the placement of left turn arrows that was recommended?
Show you right now. So on your screen is the Amherst budget. And this is referred to as the capital improvement program that shows all the different projects. And you will note that Klein Road signal modifications has been added as project E5, where Klein and Young's has been identified. There will also be additional study specific to the area of dashes. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So the next steps is,
So that's two different things there, correct?
Yep.
Youngs and Klein and then Hopkins and Klein as well.
yeah, we put in two different submissions and they were merged together.
Okay.
And we are currently the next process, procedurally, we write something called a map plan and report to obtain bonding action. The engineering department has drafted this specific map plan and report. It's at about 80% right now. And then we will ask that the town board consider that bond in an upcoming meeting. There's no guarantee that they'll pass the bond resolution, but it's programmed.
Okay.
What is that 490 LA?
Okay. So correct, 490,000 has been allocated, and this is a general bond, is what that means. General fund bond. So how much can we get out of 490? I mean, we'll do as much as possible. We can do, I mean, my hope would be to do Klein Young's design, construction, and the remainder would go into the dashes area design study is probably realistic for that amount of money.
Okay. Thank you. Any other old business or any other questions regarding old business from anyone on the board? None being heard, we'll close the old business. We will thank our department liaisons for joining us this evening, and we will move on to site plans and rezonings.